three people, 3 nights they wish they could forget. A college student who heard breathing through her apartment wall. A man who realized his security camera was watching him back. And a kid who found out his babysitter never actually left. Some nights you're not as alone as you think. I was 19, living in my first solo apartment off campus in Austin, and I thought I had everything figured out. Until the night I realized my neighbor's apartment had been empty for 3 weeks. The building was old, built in the 70s, with thin walls and even thinner doors. I'd been hearing sounds from the unit next to mine since I moved in: footsteps, water running, the occasional thud. Normal apartment noise. Or so I convinced myself. It was a Thursday when maintenance knocked on my door, asking if I'd seen the guy next door. Apparently, he'd moved out almost a month ago. The lease was terminated. The unit was supposed to be vacant. I stood there in my doorway, feeling my stomach drop. "That's impossible," I said. "I hear someone in there almost every night." The maintenance guy, Steve, gave me this look, half confused, half concerned. He pulled out his master key and offered to check it with me. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no belongings. Just carpet impressions where a couch used to be and dust everywhere. But here's what made my skin crawl. There were fresh footprints in that dust, recent ones, and a sleeping bag rolled up in the corner of the bedroom closet. Steve called the police immediately. I went back to my place and just sat there, replaying every sound I'd heard over the past 3 weeks. Someone had been living in that empty apartment right next to me, sharing a wall with my bedroom. The cops came, took the sleeping bag, found some other evidence of someone squatting there. They told me to keep my door locked and that they'd increase patrols. Real comforting, right? That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak, every whisper of sound felt amplified. Around 2 a.m., I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the empty apartment next door. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called 911, whispered the whole situation to the dispatcher. She told me to stay on the line and that officers were on their way. I pressed my ear against the wall, barely breathing. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. They moved from the living room toward what would be the bedroom. Then they stopped, right on the other side of the wall from where I was standing. Then I heard it, a voice, low and muffled, but clear enough. "I know you called them." My blood went ice cold. How did he know? Could he hear me through the wall the same way I heard him? I backed away from the wall slowly, retreating to my bathroom, the only room that didn't share a wall with his unit. I locked myself in there and waited, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Police arrived 6 minutes later. I heard them banging on the apartment door, announcing themselves, then silence, then more banging, then the sound of the door being forced open. When they finally knocked on my door, I opened it to find 3 officers. They told me they'd searched the entire unit. Nobody was there, but they'd found the sleeping bag unrolled, still warm, a pizza box from earlier that day, and on the wall between our apartments, scratched into the drywall. Thin walls. They couldn't find anyone in the building, couldn't find how they got in or out. The apartment was locked from the inside when they arrived, but the window had been left slightly open 3rd floor, but there was a fire escape. I broke my lease the next week. Didn't even care about the penalty. My parents helped me move into a newer building with better security and concrete walls. But here's what still keeps me up sometimes for 3 weeks. Someone was living right next to me, listening to me, learning my schedule. And that message on the wall, that wasn't just meant to scare me. It was meant to let me know he'd been listening the whole time. He knew my voice, my routines, probably even my name. The police never found him. Part of me wonders if he just moved on to another empty apartment in another building, another thin wall, another person who'd never know he was there until it was too late. I'm 23 now, and I still check every closet when I move into a new place. Still press my ear against walls to make sure I only hear silence. Some fears don't leave you. They just learn to hide better. I installed the security camera because my apartment had been broken into twice in 3 months. I thought it would make me feel safer. I was wrong. This was in Philadelphia, a decent neighborhood, but with enough property crime that doorbell cameras were basically a requirement. I got one of those smart cameras that sends alerts to your phone motion detection, night vision, cloud recording, the whole package. The first week was uneventful. I'd get notifications when I came home, when the mail carrier arrived, normal stuff. I actually started feeling better about living alone. Then I started noticing something weird. I'd get motion alerts at night, like 3 or 4 a.m., but when I'd check the footage, there'd be nothing there. Just my dark apartment, completely still. I figured it was glitching, maybe picking up car headlights through the window or something. I adjusted the sensitivity settings and tried to ignore it, but the alerts kept coming. Always between 3 and 5 a.m., always showing nothing. Then one night, and I remember this so clearly it makes me nauseous, I was lying in bed around 3:30 a.m., couldn't sleep, scrolling through my phone. I got the motion alert. I opened the app to check, ready to dismiss another false alarm. This time the camera was pointing at my bedroom doorway, and in the frame, barely visible in the darkness, I could see my bedroom door, which was closed, which I always kept closed at night, except in the footage it was slowly opening. I looked up from my phone to my actual door. It was closed. I looked back at the screen. The door in the footage was now halfway open. My heart stopped. I wasn't looking at a live feed. I was looking at a recording, but the app said live in the corner. Then I realized there was a delay. What I was seeing on my phone had already happened seconds ago. I stared at my real door, phone clutched in my hand, waiting. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Then, so slowly it seemed impossible, my actual bedroom door began to open. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Just watched as the door swung inward and a figure stood in my doorway. Dark clothes, face covered, just standing there. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only seconds. Then I did the only thing my panicked brain could manage. I screamed, loud and long and desperate. The figure turned and ran. I heard crashing through my apartment, then my front door slamming. I called 911, still screaming, still crying. I don't even remember what I said. Police arrived, searched my apartment, found my front door's deadbolt had been picked. They told me I was lucky. Lucky I woke up. Lucky I screamed. Lucky he ran instead of attacking. But here's the part that still haunts me. When we reviewed the security footage from that night, we found something that made my skin crawl. The camera had been recording all night, and for the past 3 nights, the same figure had been coming into my apartment around 3 a.m. He'd stand in my bedroom doorway for 10-15 minutes at a time, just watching me sleep. The camera had been trying to warn me with those motion alerts, but I dismissed them as glitches. The cops found out he'd been copying keys at a hardware store where a friend worked. He'd take impressions of keys people brought in for duplication, mine included, apparently when I'd made a spare set a month earlier. They caught him eventually. He had copies of keys to 43 apartments in the area. They found journals in his apartment describing his visits. I was number 17. During the trial, his lawyer tried to argue he never hurt anyone, never stole anything, just liked observing. But the prosecutor showed footage from other cameras, other apartments, showed him standing over sleeping women, showed him touching their hair, their faces, showed him going through their things. I testified, told them about those motion alerts I ignored, about that delay between the camera and reality, about the moment I looked up and saw him in my doorway. He got 12 years. I got a new apartment across town, better locks, and 3 cameras with 0 delay. But I haven't slept with my bedroom door closed since, because now I know that cameras don't just watch intruders. Sometimes they watch you being watched. And sometimes the scariest thing isn't what you see, it's what you chose not to look at until it was almost too late. I still get anxiety when my phone buzzes at night. Still check the footage compulsively. Still wonder how many other people are ignoring those motion alerts, thinking it's nothing, while someone stands in their doorway deciding whether tonight's the night they do more than just watch. I was 10 years old when I learned that some people never really leave when you think they do, and some people were never invited in the first place. My parents had hired a new babysitter named Courtney. She was 17, seemed nice enough, always brought her homework, and let me stay up an extra 30 minutes past bedtime. For a few months, she was just there, Friday nights, sometimes Saturdays. Then my parents planned a weekend trip. Their anniversary, 2 nights, 3 days. They asked if Courtney could stay at our house to watch me, and I said sure. I was old enough that I didn't really need constant supervision, but they felt better having someone there. Friday night was normal. We ordered pizza, watched movies. She did homework at the kitchen table while I played video games in the den. Around 11, she told me to head to bed. I did. Saturday morning, I woke up early like 7 a.m. and came downstairs expecting to find Courtney on the couch where she'd been sleeping. But she wasn't there. The blankets were folded. Her bag was gone. The spare key my parents had given her was sitting on the kitchen counter with a note. Had to leave early. Family emergency. You'll be fine. Don't tell your parents. See? I was confused and a little worried, but mostly I felt this weird sense of freedom. I had the whole house to myself for a day and a half. I could do whatever I wanted. I made myself cereal, played video games, watched TV. Around lunch, I made a sandwich. The day felt long, but kind of exciting in that way that boredom does when you're 10. Then evening came. The house got darker, the shadows longer, and I started hearing things. Nothing obvious at first, just the normal house settling sounds. But then I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, deliberate, walking across the hallway above the den. I muted the TV and listened. The footsteps stopped. Everything went quiet. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make noise. But my heart was pounding. Then I heard it again, this time closer. On the stairs, I jumped up from the couch and looked toward the staircase. Nothing there, but I heard a door close somewhere upstairs. My parents' bedroom door. I thought. Every instinct told me to run out of the house. But where would I go? I was 10. It was getting dark. I didn't have a phone. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife I could find, and crept upstairs. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I checked every room. My room, the bathroom, the guest room, all empty. Then I got to my parents' room. The door was closed. I never closed that door. I stood there for probably 2 full minutes, just staring at that door, trying to decide what to do. Finally, I pushed it open. The room was empty, but the closet door was open, and I never went in my parents' closet. I backed out of the room slowly, went back downstairs, and locked myself in the downstairs bathroom. It was the only room with a lock that actually worked. I sat in the bathtub with that knife and waited. Hours passed. I fell asleep eventually, still in the tub. I woke up to pounding on the bathroom door and my dad's voice yelling my name. It was Sunday evening. They'd come home early. When I opened the door, both my parents looked terrified. I started crying immediately, telling them everything Courtney leaving, the note, the sounds, the footsteps. My mom called Courtney right away. Courtney picked up, sounded confused, said she never left, said she'd been there all weekend, said she went out for groceries Saturday morning and came back, said she looked for me but figured I was at a friend's house or something and didn't want to worry my parents by calling them. But I saw the note. I saw the key. My dad searched the house, found something in the attic I'd never seen before, a sleeping bag, some food wrappers, a backpack, and photos, printed photos of our family, of me, of the house. Some of them were from inside the house, taken through windows. Police came. Fingerprints were lifted. Turned out a guy named Derek had been living in our attic on and off for weeks, maybe months. He'd found a way in through an old vent that wasn't properly secured. He'd been coming and going when we were asleep or not home. The photos, the footsteps, everything, it was him. And when Courtney left that Saturday morning to get groceries, he came down, moved around. Probably didn't realize I was still home until I started walking around. They found him 3 days later, sleeping in an abandoned house 2 streets over. He had keys to 4 other houses in the neighborhood, had been rotating between them. During the investigation, they found videos on his laptop, night vision footage of families sleeping, of people moving through their homes unaware, of me playing video games in the den. He'd been recording us for over 2 months. The thing that still messes with me, Courtney's note, was real. She'd left it Saturday morning. But Derek had taken the note, copied her handwriting, and left a fake one to make sure I stayed quiet. The real note said she'd be back by noon and to call her cell if I needed anything. He didn't want me calling anyone. He wanted me alone and scared and quiet. He got 8 years. I got therapy and a family that checks every corner of every house before we feel safe. I'm 16 now and I still don't like being home alone. Still check the attic. Still listen for footsteps that shouldn't be there. Because I learned that the scariest thing isn't monsters or ghosts. It's realizing that someone you never saw was always there, watching, waiting, living in the spaces between your walls and your safety, in the gaps between you thinking you're alone and the truth that you never were. If these stories made you feel something, fear, chills, or just that need to check your locks, hit that like button and subscribe to Midnight Zephyr. We bring you real stories from real people who lived through the impossible. Drop a comment telling us which story hit you hardest. We read every single one